missing someone. Love with all your heart. Missing someone. Love with heart.
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this episode I have a returning client. She wants to bring up her blonde, and then we're gonna do a little bit of a peekaboo underlight, something really just subtle and small in the back, that way she can hide it when she goes back to work. So in this appointment we're gonna be working on retouching up these roots. She hasn't seen me, I would say, in maybe like a little over a year or so, telling by her regrowth, and we're just gonna try and get her as blonde as possible and add that purple in the back. So I started off with detailing her hairline like I normally do for most of my balayage clients, and for her I am doing 2 baby lights back to back around the nape, just so that when she puts her hair up everything has a nice beautiful color. And I am trying to be super careful not to overlap on any of the previously blonde pieces there. And by doing so, I like to just use my rat tail comb and carefully pick any pieces that need to be lightened, or take out any of the blonde pieces that are in the way before applying the lightener. So now that I've finished pretty much detailing the hairline, I am now going in and just doing slices all the way up. Everything around the hairline throughout her whole head I will just be doing like weaves, just to give her really soft grow out there, but anywhere else throughout the head I do like to just do slices. I feel like you'll get a lot of impact in color, especially when roots are super grown out like this, and the client will feel a lot blonder than they were before. Now in the past I used to do like a variation of different weaves, and like chunky weaves to medium weaves to small weaves in the back here, but I kind of find that doing slices all over you're able to get more impact with the color. I will change it up though, like let's say if a client wanted something more dimensional and softer, I would definitely do more of a weave than a slice. But since this specific client really wanted to get as light as possible in just one sitting here, that's why I opted to do slices instead. And this is just going to make her feel the blondest with the foiling technique that we're doing for today. And I am making sure that my foils are not bent wherever I'm putting the lightener. So I like to just like lay a foil right on top of the other, and then I like to lock in my foil by folding in the sides and the bottom, and I feel like that gives it a really nice secure lock to where my foils don't really slip. And it's really important to lock your foils, especially when you're doing like blonding, because if you don't, sometimes the foils can slip, and when they do slip you'll start to see those like spots at the root where like the lightener bled through, and it really doesn't look super cute at all when you have like this beautiful blonde with like leopard print all over from the bleeding of the foils. But you know, sometimes that does happen, like sometimes my foils do bleed. So let's say that does happen, what I'll do is I will get a tube of permanent color, depending on what level they are. So if my client is, I would say like a level 6 and below, I'll just get a tube of like a level 3 permanent color, and straight out of the tube I will grab it and place it right on top of my bleed spots, where the lightener kind of just like bled through. And you'll notice that when doing that, it instantly covers it up like it never even happened. But yeah, that's just like a little trick that I learned from a class a while back, and it's definitely saved me a few times in the salon because it works so fast. Like when you put it on the hair or on your spot wherever you need it, it does process very quickly, and I feel like that's really important to have as a tool, like if you're doing clients and you just need something that's just gonna like fix your problem really quick. So I'm going to continue slicing throughout the top of the head, and as I'm slicing this top portion, I'm trying to make sure that my foils are a little bit closer together just because her roots are so long and she's naturally so dark. So if I leave too much dimension in this area right where she parts her hair, she's not going to feel light enough and the blend just won't be as good. And for my products, I'm using the Blonde Me lightener. My first bowl was Blonde Me with 6 and 20 volume. And then for the rest of the head, I am just using 20 volume. So for my client's goal at the end of this, she does want to be as blonde as possible. But because she has roots that are really long, getting a client to be more of like a solid blonde to where they feel really light, it does take multiple sessions because I'm having to weave the hair or slice through the hair, and then that second session I'm able to pick up all of the dark that I left out the first session and essentially get everything really blonde. So that is why, for me at least, the way that I like to do hair color and like balayage and foils, I will tell my clients that it normally takes them multiple sessions to get to a blonde tone because of that reason. Because even though the pieces that we highlight today might get super blonde and light, the natural hair color, which is, in this case, her natural is probably like a level 3, is pretty much like that background dimensional color that stands right next to the really blonde pieces. And it will never feel like she's super blonde unless those pieces get lightened up as well too. And realistically, like if a client was to come back in for a second session to get her even more blonder, I usually tell my clients that they should probably wait at least 6 weeks to come in, but wait no longer than like 12 to 14 weeks to touch it up, because the longer you wait, the longer your roots get, and the more dimension gets added into the mids and ends, and that's what kind of makes your hair feel not blonde enough when you're naturally so dark. So now that I've moved on to the sides, I am doing about 3 baby lights back to back right at the hairline. And here you can see I had my assistant Jen just kind of pull the hair aside because I'm going to be tipping out the rest of the blonde that we is out of the foils right now. So what I'll have her do is I'll have her go through each of the foils and just kind of split the hair. That way it's really easy for me to kind of grab the hair in small sections and kind of apply lightener to them. And after I did the hairline foils, I'm just going in and now slicing like I did in the back. And again, just picking out those pieces, being really careful not to overlap, and just lighten what is dark. So now I'm going in and pretty much just tipping out the blonde and balayaging them. So for my lightener on this, I typically like to use the Purple Cream Bleach. I like to use this bleach because, one, it's like a white color, so it's really easy for me to see when the hair is ready and done. And it's also just a really gentle bleach that works slow in my opinion compared to like the Blonde Me. So I used it with 6 volume, and my consistency that I like to mix it to is I'll do 1 part cream bleach to 1.5 parts of developer. And that just creates like a nice and creamy consistency to where like it's not too thick or not too runny. And I'll take the sections pretty small to where I can just like paint them, as you can see here. And I just kind of like feather up and use my hands to kind of just make a nice transition and like blend the top part. And usually for my tip outs like this, I do tend to rinse these out before the rest is even ready. It just depends on how fast their hair lightens. But I do like to double check these, make sure that they're okay, because again, this is on the parts that are already blonde, so you want to be a little extra careful and make sure that you're checking them as well as checking your foils. So now I'm going in with some velvet. So she wanted just like a pop of fun purple in her hair, and she told me that she was going to be going back to work sometime soon, so she wanted to be able to like hide it at work. So I did a very small section behind here to where it's like behind the ear, and thick enough to where she'll be able to enjoy it, but thin enough to where like she can probably like braid it and then maybe like twist it in a bun and clip it up and wear her hair down, and no one will even notice that she has this purple in the back. But I love that she had this idea of doing this, because I always like a little bit of a splash of color with like my natural color tones. I feel like it just makes it more fun, and it really makes the color pop a bit more. So I'm applying the semi first, because the semi typically has to stay on the hair for about like 35 minutes. And after that, I do apply the liquid demi formulation that's going to be on the top, that is toning the blonde area. But I like to do this section first just because it's going to process the longest, and I like to rinse everything out pretty much at the same time. So I just felt like since this is going to process the longest, I'm going to apply it first before I apply the demi, because the demi to me is kind of visual depending on how porous the hair is. Sometimes I gotta rinse it out quicker, or sometimes I feel like I need to leave it on for the full time. It just depends on the goal and the client's hair at the time. Okay, so now that I've done the purple, Jen and I are going in, and we're going to apply that liquid demi. So for her root formulation, we had mixed up 7-0, and we're just going in, and I like to apply my root shadows vertically. I just feel like when you apply root color vertically, for root shadow specifically, like a color mount type of thing, it blends the line a little bit. If I do it horizontally, I just feel like sometimes you can see the harsh line of the root shade compared to the lighter shade. So I just like to do it vertically towards the front, and I always start in the back and then work my way towards the front so that it kind of gets a little bit lighter towards the front of the face. And then after we did the root shadow, I just put the mid toner on, which was 9-2, and 9-2 is a level 9 violet, and I just like to apply it on the mid first and let that tone, because the mid is where it's freshly lightened from virgin hair, so it's not as porous as the ends are. And when the hair is more porous, it tends to grab a lot of the ash from a toner quicker than hair that isn't as porous. So I apply it on the mid and let that process, and I just kind of like brush it over the ends and then kind of go through and see where else it needs more toner. But I normally don't even really put the toner fully on the ends of the hair unless it's like really warm, because I find that just like brushing over the mid-tone over the ends sometimes even just tones the hair, and that's honestly all it needs, because the ends are just naturally more porous. Alrighty guys, here is my finished model. You can see how beautiful the blonde looks, and that blend from the long root that she had, I feel like it gives a beautiful transition, and this is going to grow out and fade really pretty on her. You can already tell that she has beautiful dimension from her natural color, and the ends really do pop because we did freshly lighten them as well as lighten the roots. And then of course, I love that we added that pop of velvet on the underneath. I feel like it gives it such life to the color and gives it such a fun vibe. I always love adding creative color tones to natural color tones because it's always like a cool peekaboo to have a fun color underneath. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.